Spanish is a romantic language. And because it is romantic, it's the opposite of mechanical. And repetition is important to remember. You see? But in English, the language is already so practical, so down to earth, that you don't need the repetition. It's just there, clearly.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. You're listening to Gnostic Lectures. In this episode, this is episode number 7, we're going to be talking about just conversations about gnosis. Every 3 or so lectures, we've decided just to have a free discussion about gnosis. With me, my co-host is Jim G. Ross. How are you today, Jim?
Fine, thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure again to be here. Actually, it's an honor, as I said it before, to be connected with you, with RickyRadio.com, plus with the entire human race that I consider my real family on Earth.
We were just talking before we started the recorder about the psychology of people in the English language versus the Spanish language, and we were just talking about how some people like repetition and others don't. And we were addressing the content of this lecture and how I was basically saying that we don't want to keep repeating certain things over and over again because English-speaking people don't like to hear repetition. And you were telling me that in Spanish it's just the opposite.
You know, this is very interesting, but based on my own personal experience as a bilingual individual who speaks English and Spanish, Spanish is a romantic language. And being romantic, to express a point, we never go directly into the center of the idea. We go in circles, slowly trying to capture everything possible before we reach the point. This is a tendency within the language itself. As a romantic language, we feel that we have to express our love and attraction for the universe, for life, for nature, for people. And of course, saying I love you, that's it, it's not enough. But if we say, well, you're so beautiful, life is great, I'm happy that we have met, and then in Spanish we say all of that.
And in my experience, there's 2 kinds of people in the world. The technical people who love the internet, they're very abrupt, to the point. This is the way it is, few words. The Bill Gates, the people who have done well on the internet, all of the tech geeks, they just say one little thing and that's it. But the vast majority, even in English, the vast majority of people out there, if you're a salesman, okay, and I'm not a very good salesman, if you're a salesman, you will always repeat the same thing several times from different angles. And that way, the law of 3 for salesmen, if you're a salesman and you want to make a sale, you will attack it at least 3 times from different directions, right?
Yeah. Well, the main reason for that is not then we begin to agree that people need sometimes repetition because normally when you listen, you're watching a movie or you're listening to a lecture or you're reading a book, how much attention are you paying to what you're doing, Approximately 10%, between 10 to 25%. We are missing 75% of the information. So the purpose of selling is to sell, to connect, to make people buy. So when you repeat, then you're touching that other 75% unconscious when people were not paying attention to what you wanted to tell them. You see, either you're writing, you're watching a movie, you're reading, or you're listening to a conversation or a speech.
So 2 things that you wanted to talk about that I felt were covered more and more in previous lectures. One is Darwin, and the other is the Big Bang. And I was saying the reason why this discussion came about in the first place is because I thought the listeners had a little bit too much of Darwin already. But let's talk about Darwin again, because there's obviously more to this, isn't there? And let me also say that the body of knowledge that Samael Enver has given us is so extensive, there has to be overlap from one lecture to another, from one idea to another. There has to be overlap because it's so extensive, right?
That's correct.
But let's talk about Darwin.
You know,
we haven't heard enough about Darwin yet.
well, you're right. You're right. Why I said that I feel it is my duty. My sense of duty is pushing me to do this. Why? Because I'm exploring reality and I'm also searching for the truth. Okay, the truth. Is there anything more important than the truth? Some people say, well, there is no truth, because everything is relative. Wrong. Actually, Albert Einstein never said that everything was relative. He only said time and space are relative.
And we've heard that many times before, but it is important. I realize that, yeah.
Yes. So basically, why are we coming into Darwin so frequently? Because, scientists and intellectual individuals or university professors or whatever, they are making of Darwin theory of evolution of the species, they are making of it a dogma. And this is absolutely against scientific research. When you make a dogma of something and you're wrong, you are committing a real crime. This is a scientific crime. This is something that you cannot forgive because we're teaching people the wrong way. We're making people believe something that is not true. And that's, to me, a very serious matter. This is why we have to come back and come back and come back. And to be heard and heard and heard 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000,000 times, if it is possible. Because in reality, Darwin was incomplete. And as we said before, Pasteur, another great scientist, criticized Darwin. And of course, he said that Darwin was incomplete. Evolution is a reality, it's a cosmic law. It's a law of nature. But there is another law that Darwin ignored completely, which is the opposite of evolution, which is involution. Involution or devolution, which is returning to the original point. Up and down, up and down. Now, you see, so essentially, we explained that before a few times,
Well, can I say a few things?
Of course.
The theory of evolution is so entrenched in people's mind. You know how it is with a theory. It starts off with a theory, and people pass it back and forth. They kick it around. Sometimes decades roll by, maybe even 100 years rolls by, and that theory becomes so entrenched that they think of it as axiomatic, as a law. It isn't. They think of it that way, but it isn't. And I happen to like Star Trek, and I've noticed on some of the Star Trek Voyager episodes, we have all kinds of take it for granted that it's Darwin's theory of Darwin's evolution, and they're not even calling it a theory anymore. They're accepting it as a law. It's not a law. And let's beat this Darwin thing to death, because there's two schools with evolution. One is the religionist school, and the other one is the atheist or the Darwinistic school. The people who believe in Darwin think that it's the evolution of the species, and the people who are religionists, in my opinion, are almost just as bad, because they just depend on faith without any what would you call it? There's two words that come to mind here: the a priori and empirical knowledge. Okay, these two words, they're words that are well known. A priori is something that you can get knowledge directly from the internal worlds, perhaps, or whatever. But empirical knowledge is what you would accept in a court of law, the physical knowledge. Am I correct in those two terms?
Yes.
So the religionists are saying, okay, I accept God created everything, and they're totally rejecting the Darwinism, And it's a creationist theory, and it's fine, but they don't have anything to bring into a court of law to prove that one way or the other. There was actually a movie about that one time. And it doesn't help us to get into that sort of thing right now. But those are the two schools of thought. But neither one takes into consideration gnosis. And I really want to, at some point in this podcast, get into a priori and direct communications with your monad. I was hoping to do that at some point, maybe later on. But we're still talking about Darwin. And the Gnostic view is in between the two of them, okay? And it gives, in the last podcast, we had the history of the earth and the history of the human race. To me, that's a very long podcast, and it's a lot of information to take in. And we were talking about how people watch TV and listen to audio, and they only absorb a small percentage of it, and they have to keep repeating. If they want to really absorb it, they have to perhaps listen to podcasts more than once.
That's correct. Essentially, this is important to be remembered also. The Pope, the actual Pope and the Pope before, John Paul before, he did mention that evolution is a reality. So creation is a cosmic law, and evolution is another cosmic law. So they do agree with a Gnostic perception of reality. So that means religion is moving into also the scientific field, because we will have in the near future a specific lecture. Its title will be probably, religion will become scientific and science will become religious. Mm-hmm. You see, because the coincidences are developing more and more and more, and through gnosis, we can really develop incredible perceptions of reality that will confirm, that possibility, which is more than a possibility, because the universe, reality itself, has to be explored in a very serious manner and with a tremendous respect for life. And when for example, the theory of the Big Bang, okay, this is another wrong approach into reality, because it's like life started after a huge, gigantic cosmic explosion in the universe. Come on, that sounds like a cartoon movie, a movie made for children and entertaining purpose only, without any educational purpose. Come on, this is based on the psychology of war. Oh, if we drop bombs here and there, a nuclear explosion is maybe, we have to kneel down before the majesty of the nuclear explosion. Come on, this is absolutely ridiculous. We cannot use these kind of tricks to impress an audience, We have to be more respectful about reality, about nature, and about spirituality. And this is why the Big Bang has nothing to do with the birth of life. All religions, actually, when you study religions in depth, then the way we do it in Gnosis, for example, the Jewish religion, okay, they teach about the absolute. Not only the Jewish religion, the Hindu religion also, and all ancient religions describe the absolute in a beautiful and respectful manner. The absolute is an spiritual sun. We could say an spiritual universe. Behind every physical sun, there is a spiritual sun. And that's the absolute. Listen to this carefully and try to remember my words. The absolute has always been, will always be.
And the absolute is not tied to time.
That's correct.
And that's why everything in the universe, according to Albert Einstein anyway, has relativity with time.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's not imprisoned within time. And it's not imprisoned within evolution, which are mechanical laws. It's not imprisoned within time and space. You see, it's higher than space and it's higher than time. So our poor little brains won't be able to understand easily this concept that life can only descend from life The absolute is life forever. It has always been, it will always be. So life descended from the absolute. The absolute created the universe, created the spirit, and created matter. The spirit is the masculine aspect of creation, and nature, the universe, is the feminine aspect of nature. So we can say the spirit is light. When it descends into the universe, it becomes fire, the masculine aspect of life, and the universe is water. Our organism is made of water, 80% or more. And of course, within water you find minerals, you find the earth, you find the air, you find, everything which is connected with nature. And of course, the universe was created through the spirit and matter, masculine and feminine aspect. We always need a man and a woman to create life. So, and at the end of a cosmic day, because life is a great school of learning, we all return to the absolute. But to the absolute, matter cannot return. What returns is the spirit, the light that descended from the absolute, and we will return to a cosmic night. When a planet dies, then we enter into a cosmic night and we all return to the absolute. So life can only descend from life. Please remember that. Remember my words. And stop believing in such a ridiculous approach into reality, which is the Big Bang theory. Ladies and gentlemen, remember my words.
There's several things I want to discuss about the last lecture. I was a little confused when you were talking about rounds and races. And I don't want to get into the depth of it that you did in the last lecture. But what is a round?
Yeah, essentially, we use the word round to describe the movement of the particles, atomic particles, The electrons move around the center of the atomic particle. And this is a round, rounding. And so remember that the straight line doesn't exist. The straight line is part of the curve.
Yeah, everything in the universe, even according to Walter Russell, is spiral in nature. Yeah,
that's correct. So basically, it's important to understand better the concept of the absolute and the universe. So the absolute manifests through the black holes. Scientists are very much lost regarding the interpretation of the purpose of a black hole. So we can say life descends from the absolute through the black holes into the universe. And at the end of a cosmic day, the same spiritual being that we all are will return to the absolute through the same black holes. It's like inhaling and exhaling life. So around means, after we descend here, the spirit immerses within matter, and matter is the one that is in motion. Remember, in motion, and this in a spiral way, and this is the way we call it a round. But the round means, there is an evolutionary round, or also an involutionary, coming and returning. Okay,
so I'm still not clear. We have the first race was the I'm trying to remember the name of the first race because I want to get this straight.
The protoplasmatic. Protoplasmatic. Protoplasma in blood,
Now, is that around that existence of that type of being was the first round?
No. Essentially, we could say that there are 7 rounds. Okay.
What would be the first round then?
No, the first round is an atomic round. It means, what was first created within nature. Because when a new planet is created,
I think in terms of solidification and rarefication, basically, the first rounds were not as solid, right?
Yeah, the first round is atomic.
Yes,
You
but
know?
I'm trying to get the difference between the races and the rounds, and then the sub-races.
Yeah, don't speak about the races yet.
Okay.
Okay, because we will make it more complex.
That's where I'm at. I'm very confused right now.
Yeah, essentially, a round represents, the creation of planet Earth at the very beginning. So, matter.
That's the descent of spirit into matter for the first time, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So when the spirit descends into matter and the planet is created, because the fire and the water.
Now, once that first planet is created, does it support 7 races at that time, and then it goes on to the next round?
Also, but a different kind of race.
Yes, I understand
So
that.
the first round is atomic, okay? And some esoteric schools call it mental, which is the same.
Yeah.
Because every thought is atomic. Scientists don't use those terms yet because they want to verify first that the mind and the atoms are connected. So every thought we say is atomic.
So what round? See, we've covered a lot of this in another lecture, and I don't want to really cover it all exactly the same again. So what round are we in now?
No, we are in the fourth round.
Fourth round.
The fourth round. So basically, the first round was atomic.
Yeah.
So the Earth was atomic. We should say transparent gas. At the beginning is gas. The creation of a planet.
Nebulous.
Nebulous. That's correct. So,
as a matter of fact, we have nebulae in the heavens. If you look at telescopes, you can see systems that are called nebulous, right?
That's correct. So basically, either they are planets emerging, or they are planets returning to the absolute.
Yeah.
Life is coming in or life is going out. So, but life is really spiritual. At the beginning,
the real life is spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the matter part of it is more the robotic part, right?
Yeah, it's the vehicle,
Yeah.
the vehicle or the wardrobe of the spirit to move, within the physical universe.
That's a little clearer. So in each round we have 7 races.
We have 7 races, and also we have, this is the interesting part, because when a baby is procreated, through the spermatozoa and the ovule of the physical father, the physical mother,
Yes.
they say, oh, there is no life, and then abortion is okay. No, it's not okay, because life is already there, immediately, within the father and within the mother. And they are given the physical body to the spirit that is waiting for the body. And that's the beginning of that physical body, but the spirit was always there. Mm-hmm. So essentially, the first round is atomic or mental. So the earth had already all kingdoms, mineral kingdom, but atomic only. It wasn't cellular or molecular. It was just atomic gas,
Yes.
And we had also vegetal kingdom, and we have an animal kingdom, and also people, species. Angelical beings, were here at that time. They were the beginners of life, because they had to structure and organize the new planet. Then the second round, after millions and millions and millions of years, became molecular.
Yeah.
So the molecular universe was created. So the Earth, we can say 2 different Earths, interconnected, but becoming part of a cosmic organism, because the Earth is alive. It's alive and intelligent. Some people, I have a lot of friends who are atheists, and they are my friends, We have the right to disagree. And they always argue with me, saying, no, nature is there, but nature cannot be intelligent. There is no consciousness in nature.
Everything is alive.
And my answer is, no, I disagree with you respectfully.
And this is one of the sad things about native people, native North American Indians knew very well. I mean, we're not suggesting that people change to that type of thinking, but they certainly knew about nature being alive.
That's correct. Yes. Actually, when you enter into these studies and you develop your knowledge about esoteric perception or reality, then you realize that every atomic particle is alive. There are invisible beings that move the air, that move the ocean, that move the fire, that move the earth. The mineral kingdom is alive, A mind is a family of spiritual individuals that live inside the gold, inside the copper, inside the lead, etc., etc., etc. But scientists don't realize it because they don't have the instrument to verify that. But if you can awaken your superior senses, like, for example, what we call the third eye or clairvoyance or the pituitary gland, we will be able to see those beautiful individuals that live within the mineral kingdom. So all nature is alive. Every atomic particle pulsates. It means there is a heart inside of that atomic particle. There is life that pulsates. Okay? Try to remember that, please. So the second round was molecular.
Yeah, we don't want to repeat the entire lecture over again.
No, of course not. And then the third round was etheric. Why etheric? Ether is a magnetic field. It's an element of nature that very much used in, surgery to make people fall asleep before an operation. But at the same time, ether is the element that reigns within the universe, within space, among planets. That's the fourth dimension.
And in Gnostic terms, ether, of course, means, actually, the correct definition is everything, everywhere, right?
That's correct.
Because
yes.
As a fish swims in water, the fish has no knowledge of water, has no concept of what water is, where water is, any understanding about water, but yet it lives and swims in the water. And we do the same thing with ether. We're totally immersed in the ether, and it is a life form.
That's correct. It's also the same magnetic field that Albert Einstein discovered the fourth dimension, which is the same etheric universe, another planet Earth made of ether. Interconnected, interrelated. We could say another aspect of the nature of planet Earth. So there were also species there, mineral, vegetal, and humans, animals and humans. And now we're in the fourth round, which is cellular. Cells, everything is cellular today. Even some insects are molecular. They say if we have a nuclear holocaust, these molecular insects will survive, which is true.
It's amazing. They can have microorganisms living in acid deep in the ocean or in the stratosphere and almost anywhere there's a life form that will survive, right?
Yes.
They say if we have a nuclear holocaust that the cockroaches will be the only survivors, maybe.
Yes, no, you're right. So essentially, for example, Samael Aun Weor, the founder of Gnostic anthropology, an incredible superior individual, we could say an archangel reincarnated on earth to help us, like many other superior beings doing the same work. But Samael Aun Weor describes something very interesting regarding the prehistoric animals, those gigantic animals, described in history or in prehistory. What are they? When they disappear, where are they gone? Samael Aun Weor says something very interesting. He said, those animals, gigantic animals, they live today in the air. They are tiny little microorganisms that float within the air. If we can capture them and look them through the microscope, we will see the same gigantic animals, but now with a tiny little physicality. So this is the law of involution. They are returning to the absolute. As a species, they disappear physically, but they continue living within the parallel universes. So they are returning already to the absolute.
So what about extinction? The whole notion of extinction means basically, yes, you can have the dinosaurs become extinct on this planet, but the idea of dinosaurs still exists in creation, in the absolute. There are other planets similar to ours, who knows what exactly, but there might be life forms like that on other planets. I mean, the idea isn't gone just because they're not here. It's sort of like Earth is a garden, and well, you don't have peas in the garden or you don't have carrots, but you do have other things. Well, somebody else's garden might have those, right?
Yes. Actually what happens on Earth, repeats in every planet within the universe. So life has existence in every planet, even we like it or not. It could be, as we said it before, it could be atomic life, and that's it, or it could be molecular life, it could be etheric life, or even cellular life. But life is everywhere, except in a moon. A moon is a dead planet, so this is part of extinction, okay? When a planet dies, then it becomes a moon. All moons of the universe used to be planets with life within them, and now they are dead. They will transform slowly into cosmic dust. They become asteroids, and this is why the asteroids are also traveling, but they used to be part of planets.
So I have to ask you this, okay? There's 2 moons. Earth has 2 satellites, 2 moons. Not man-made satellites, but the other dark moon is talked about quite a bit in Gnostic teachings, right?
Yes.
And do we know about that? I don't know if NASA knows about it, but
they do. Even they gave a name to it, which is Lilith. Lilith, Lilith. And according to Kabbalah, Lilith is the black moon, which is like an asteroid next to our physical moon, and they call, in also esoteric language, the white moon, the big one that we see every night, Nahema. Nahema and Lilith. In esoteric studies, both represent, the 2 wives of Adam when Adam fell from a stage of grace. But of course, it's a symbolic aspect. But on the other side, Lilith is a dead planet, the same way Nahema is another dead planet. And those people who render cult to the moon, to the 2 moons, in reality, they are inviting death to come. And sometimes not even death, negative forces that are connected, with death, like, negativity, illness, even hatred. The moon has a tremendous gravitation on Earth, but in reality, the moon doesn't inhale life from us. We do the opposite. We are the vampire, because we are alive. The planet Earth, we can say, vampirizes the moon. So we are attracting atoms from the moon from a dead planet. And this is why we become a lunar humanity, unless we learn to transform ourselves into solar individuals, receiving the benefit of the sun and the stars, instead of getting that negativity coming from the moon, which is, in a stage of involution, devolution, in a stage of death. So when you mentioned also before, extinction, we should remember the man of Cro-Magnon and the man of Nardenthal, described by Darwin and his followers. In reality, these 2 kind of individuals that lived only 8,000 years ago, and they disappeared mysteriously, and they say they are our ancestors, That's another crime committed against humanity. Because...
Oh, wait a minute. Who's committing the crime here? Darwin?
Well, the followers of Darwin.
Okay.
The followers, because in reality, when they become dogmatic about Darwin theories, nobody has the right to discuss them or to criticize them or to disagree with them.
So we're talking about the caveman, basically, right?
The cavemen, they lived only 8,000 years ago. And we explain in past lectures, where are they coming from? They were a species in extinction. 2 species in extinction. They are not really our ancestors. They were degenerated individuals that lived before, coming from races that fell from a stage of grace. Because our original ancestors were superior beings, angelical beings, that were planted here on Earth to organize life on Earth. The situation is, this is part of a cosmic divine plan that happens in every planet. So superior beings have to organize because they have the knowledge to organize life in a planet. But after that, they are being tested also, the way we are being tested, even if we don't realize it. You said it, we live in an etheric universe also, we don't even perceive it, we don't see it. And it's the same magnetic field discovered by Albert Einstein, telephones, cell phones, internet, television, radio, they are all connected with the fourth dimension. So let's come back.
Well, I have a problem with that because I have an electronics background and I've never been involved in the fourth dimension in any of that stuff. Because anyway, it might seem mysterious to a lot of people that the technology is somehow in the fourth dimension. But I guess to backpedal a little bit, I have to say that the theory of electricity isn't even properly comprehended,
That's totally correct, It is correct. Because the electricity is the same fire, it's the same Holy Spirit. You don't like it? The way I say it, I describe it, well, we have the right to disagree. But in reality, the Holy Spirit is the same electricity.
You know what? My grandfather one time told me, he said, electricity is nothing but heat. And he was, before he died, he told me that. And he really honestly believed that electricity was just heat. Well, I was laughing at him because I was studying electronics at the time and I knew the theory of how electrons move from one atom to another. And I go, yeah, this guy's so full of it, right? But yeah, young people always laugh at older people. That's even happening all the time. But was he so far wrong in his theory? I mean...
No, he was right, 100%. The situation is, when we die, the electricity of the body is gone. It means life is gone. The Holy Spirit is gone, so that we are dead. Our physical matter becomes what? Cold and in a stage of deep degeneration. We become worms after that. Yeah. So in reality, the Holy Spirit is the same electricity. And that electricity is the one that interconnects cells from, molecules and from atomic particles. And the interesting part is the same electrons, the electronic energy that surrounds the atomic particles. They are free. There are free electrons. It means guided by a superior cosmic intelligence. And they are the ones that travel through space, which is light crystallized. The spirit descending from the absolute must crystallize to connect with matter and to develop matter. Otherwise, there is no creation. There is no life. So, coming back, into the man of Cro-Magnon and the man of Nardenthal, they are a species in extinction. People who enter into deep stage of degeneration and they ended mixing with animals in the middle of global catastrophes that the earth has experienced in the past. These people escape to the mountains. And after you live in the mountains for thousands and thousands of years, what happens to you? You become an animal. Especially if you become more and more unconscious about your own situation. You're escaping from, collective tragedies that were faced when there were earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and of course, you become mentally unstable, and probably sexually also you enter into a stage of deep degeneration. And according to Gnostic anthropology, these individuals mix with animals. And this is why the cave people are never our ancestors. They are just a degenerated species that came from superior beings similar to us or higher than the way we are today. Because the survivors of those catastrophes who had the knowledge didn't live with the cave people. They had already a civilization. You remember the ancient Egyptians. They lived 25,000 years ago here. When the cave people were in the middle of the forest, in the middle of earthquakes and global catastrophe, the Egyptians had a beautiful life. They had knowledge, They knew how to use electricity, magnetic field, They had spaceships. They moved those gigantic rocks from faraway places to build the pyramids. They had knowledge about mathematics, knowledge about science.
It has to be. I mean, it has to be that the Egyptians moved these big rocks with some kind of energy. And of course, we, as Gnostics, say that it's Christic energy or the fire within, or I'm not sure exactly what words to use. But there's no evidence to suggest anything else.
That's correct. Even, there is a new field in anthropology or archaeology called Egyptology.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was too much for official science to be comprehended. They had to put everything together in one package. And they are still puzzled because they don't say what we are saying. We understand clearly what happened to the Egyptians. The Egyptians, were connected with these angelical humanities that lived on earth. They were planted in the fourth round, which is the cellular round, our actual round. They were planted, but they were not the first race of the fourth round. They were actually number 3, So they were not as developed as people from ancient China or Tibet, ancient Tibet, or the ancient Aztecs and Mayans and Peruvians. In this case, in ancient Peru, we had the Huiracocha, which is called the Christ of the Incas.
Yes.
They were survivors, from Atlantis, the missing civilization that existed 1 million years ago. And these people, 1 million years ago, they had a technology more advanced than our actual technology today. Does it sound crazy? It does, maybe. But be open to different alternatives. Are we evolving today? The answer is no.
So a question. The Atlanteans, were they in the 4th round or were they in the 3rd round? I'm a little confused about that.
Yeah, no, basically, the Atlanteans were in the the Atlanteans were in the 4th round.
So that's our round.
Our actual round, yeah.
So we're the 5th, what do you call it, sub-races?
No, basically...
They call it root races, right?
Yeah, we are the 5th, number 5. Number 5 because in the cellular universe, we've been already 5 races.
Yeah, okay.
And the first 3 races were angelical. Mm-hmm. They were superior beings, gigantic individuals, There is evidence about that. We mentioned that before.
Well, I mean, there's lots of evidence to show that there have been giants on Earth.
Yes. Yeah. And they were our real ancestors. They were our real ancestors.
Yeah.
So basically, and at the 3rd human race stage, there was a collapse, of everything. Because this is what the Bible calls the fall of Adam and Eve. They lost paradise. It means they lost consciousness. They lost their superior senses. They used to have 12 senses minimum, and they lost 7 superior senses. And here we are with only 5, because we enter also into degeneration. But we have the option, it's up to us. And this is why Gnostic anthropology is teaching us how to go up again, how to get back those 7 superior senses, which is learning to become normal. Are we abnormal? Well, I don't want to insult anybody, but in reality, we enter into involution. We are not evolving any longer. We descended from a stage of grace, and now our duty, our mission, this is the purpose of life, is to go back into our, grace stage that was given to us by Mother Nature and the divinity. So,
basically, there's 2 more things I would like to touch on if I can. One is, on the webpage, one of our web pages, we have that there's a whole list of people: Walter Russell, Edgar Casey, Mary Baker Eddy. There's a few other names that are very, very well known, people who have brought important information to the world. And I say on one of the web pages that Samael Anwer is at the top of the list. What I mean by that is that all of these other people contributed wonderful information to humanity, but it is my sincere opinion that Samael Anwer has brought the most important knowledge to the world. And that's one of the reasons for Gnostic lectures. That's why we're doing this. But also gnosis is knowing. And I'd like to have, with your permission, Jim, a little explanation here. I want to give an explanation as to why this body of knowledge is different from the others. And it's different in this respect. Here's a challenge to our listener. You will at some point go to bed tonight and get up in the morning, and you will have a dream. And that dream might have some symbolism in it. And what you're going to do with that symbolism is very highly probable that it will relate to something that you're listening to or have listened to in this series of podcasts. And I want you to pay attention before you start moving your muscles in the morning, to pay attention to what images you're given. Because this is where we jump off from the book reading, information collecting, do nothing type of podcast into the opposite of that, which is a totally involved, and you go from studying to knowing. The gnosis part of this is knowing. And what you're going to have is, let me describe that each individual listening to this podcast has a monad. Gnostics call it a monad, Christians call it God, or whatever name your religion happens to refer to it. It's the divinity within. And that divinity wants to carry on a two-way conversation with you. And so what's going to happen when you wake up tomorrow morning is you're going to have an image. And let me say that the image of a lion is symbolic of your Father within. Okay? So if you happen to have that kind of an image, pay attention. Is it a lion that's happy? Is it a lion that's angry? Pay attention to the dream, because only you can interpret that. It is your God within trying to communicate with you. And this is your opportunity to step out of the intellectual aspect of gnosis and enter the real gnosis. And I want to challenge each and every listener to pay attention to your dreams tomorrow morning, the next morning, and every morning. Because from now on, the images that you get in your dreams will mean something. And you have to remember that it is your monad trying to communicate to you. This sounds ridiculous, but it is the only way of knowing. Gnosis is knowing. So let's begin the process.
Yeah, that's extremely important. So gnosis means knowledge, knowing. So that means knowing what? Knowing ourselves. That's the key point, because we are a doctrine of the synthesis. The same doctrine of the synthesis was given to humanity already by Jesus Christ, Moses, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, Hermes Trismegistus, Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, all masters of founders of religions. They came to teach the doctrine of the synthesis. And now we're bringing it back. This is why we say all religions are good, because they all teach the same principles. And as we said it before, in the near future, religion will become scientific and science will become religious.
And the only way that it can become scientific, in fact, is to know that the human mechanism, including everything that's inside of us, is, as a collective thing, a scientific instrument. And if our bodies and the internal bodies and our soul within are a scientific instrument, then we can use all of those faculties and abilities to find out about the universe.
That's correct. So basically, we could say, as we said it before, we are a perfect representation of our galaxy. We are the galaxy. Every atomic particle is connected with every planet within the galaxy. How many millions of planets? How many millions of atomic particles do we have? So when we learn to illuminate every atomic particle, we become the galaxy. We can ascend into a degree of perfection we cannot even imagine. And this is why Jesus Christ came to teach that. And Moses and Buddha and Krishna and all the other, masters of the White Lodge that came to teach humanity how to get out of the animal kingdom, because we're still part of the animal kingdom, to move into the real humans. And after that, to become suprahumans, but never through evolution, but through a tremendous revolution of our soul.
And this is the beginning of the revolution, to first of all establish a two-way communication with the monad. And what I would like our listeners to do is to pay attention to the images. You don't even have to be sleeping to get an image. You can be quiet, and an image might come into your mind, into your mind's eye. And you have to remember that every individual on earth has a monad. And that monad has been trying to communicate with you, the lower part, for a long, long time. And you've been ignoring and ignoring and ignoring these little... The method of communication is through images. And when you start paying attention to those images, you will go from an intellectual student into a person that knows. And this is the knowing part of gnosis. And I'd like to talk about some other symbolism. The lion is the king of the animal kingdom, and it's symbolic of your real being within. Also, there's a snake. And the snake, in Christian terms, snakes are looked upon as something not so good. But in Gnostic terms, can be either positive or negative. For instance, if the head of the snake is up, that's a good thing, because it represents the kundalini of the spinal column. If the head is down, that's a negative symbol. It means that, well, what does it mean, Jim? I mean, is there any other symbols we could give a new person entering into this for the very first time, from intellectual knowledge to knowing? How do you get a person to start knowing? It's dream yoga, isn't it?
Yeah. So when you mention the serpent looking down or going down, it's a stage of degeneration.
Yeah.
It means our spine connects the three brains. We mentioned that before. We have three brains. The intellectual brain, everybody knows about it. The emotional brain, which is our own heart. This is why emotional intelligence comes from there. And the sexual, instinctive, and motor brain, which is our own genitals. This is why we have to learn to have a tremendous respect for sex and also emotions and also the intellect, because they are all connected with each other. So the situation is, we have to, when we say knowledge, knowing, or gnosis, the key point is go to study yourself. Do you know who you are? Do we know who we are?
And we don't need a guru, do we? As Samael said, you don't need me. Yes. Necessarily don't follow a guru, right?
The most beautiful part of Gnostic teachings, gnosis as a way of life, is that don't follow anybody. Follow your real being. Follow your inner being. Follow your God within yourself.
Yes.
The king of the universe and the queen of the universe that become one within our spirit or our monad. So this is extremely important, and to be able to listen, to pay attention to what you describe, Rick, we have to learn to meditate. Meditation means having a dialogue with our monad, with our real being, with our spiritual being, with the king of the universe that lives within ourselves. Because knowledge is coming from there. Knowledge and wisdom and love and consciousness, they are all coming from, the creator of the universe. And we are all a tiny little piece of that creator, because our real being is really our spiritual being, our spirit, connected with our matter, of course, that gave us life. But life existed before the creation itself, through the absolute. So learning to know ourselves is the key point, or self-knowledge. In ancient Greece, at the entrance of the temple of Delphis, there was a sentence, we can still read it in ancient Greek. O man, woman, know yourself, and you will know the gods and the universe. As we said, the ancient gods are the same angels, archangels, Elohim, superior cosmic beings that have the power to create planets, solar systems, constellations, and even galaxies. Jesus Christ is a cosmo creator of galaxies. Listen to my words. He has the power and the knowledge to create galaxies, and even groups of galaxies organized. Incredible, fantastic, unbelievable. Yes, it does. It looks like that. But, well, this is something that we should learn to immerse within ourselves to discover the truth of it. So we say that Jesus Christ is the chief of the White Lodge. Well, this is something, of course, to be discussed and to be meditated. So meditation, what you mentioned, Rick, in the morning when we wake up, having that dialogue with our real being, with the divinity within ourselves, means not only asking questions, means also listening to their answers, to the answers from the divinity. At the beginning will be a very blurry communication, but eventually it will become more and more clear. Samael Aun-Weor, the founder of the School of Gnostic Anthropology, he had the power and the knowledge to see his real being, face to face, his divine father, divine mother, face to face. He could talk to them. And this is the key point. When we develop that capability, it's because we are awakening intuition. Intuition, this is the Aquarian age, this is the age of intuition.
If a student progresses in this work, establishes a dialogue with their real being, and then at some point develops some of their extra sensory perceptions that are atrophied, a student can go into the Akashic records and find out the truth for him and herself, right?
Yeah, well, the Akashic records, are mentioned in every esoteric school. They are actually the fourth dimension. This magnetic field of the Earth and of every atomic particle or cellular particle, or also...
So there's really no secrets in the universe, really, is it? When you talk of the Akashic records, in the physical world, we have WikiLeaks, we have societies like the CIA, the FBI, all of these people who have secrets, national secrets, espionage, all kinds of intrigue going on in the physical world. But in the universe, there is no secret, really, right?
Everything is recorded within the memories. We can call it the memories of nature. When I take a picture of someone, how is it possible that I can get the image printed, in a piece of material? How is it possible? The only explanation is that through the etheric field, the magnetic field of the Earth, that electricity, captures the image of the person or the location I'm trying to, capture, and then it will be printed eventually in a piece of matter, paper, whatever, and that becomes the picture. But the situation is, if you are capable of awakening your third eye, or clairvoyance, or creative imagination, connected with the pituitary gland, you'll be able to see the memories of nature. You will be able to study the memories of nature. So whatever has happened in the universe, within planet Earth, within every human life on Earth, is already recorded. So be careful, my dear friend who is listening right now. Whoever is listening, everything we do, every thought is already recorded.
If you think of the movie 1984, where they had cameras in the walls, and the government of that era was Big Brother, and the government knew everything you were doing, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, because the universe has the Akashic records, as you just spoke about,
If we in the future develop the technology to create a huge, gigantic television set connected with the fourth dimension and more developed than the actual technology, we'll be able to see the memories of nature. We'll be able to see the reality of Moses when he was performing his miracles. We'll be able to see the reality of Jesus Christ, the reality of Buddha, the reality of all masters from the past, historically speaking, because history is recorded. The true history of the universe is recorded. Maybe we won't like what we are going to see one day, but it is there. Well, some people believe that the technology is already developed. It's already developed.
There's a lot of inventions and so forth that have not really found their way to popular knowledge, because we think there's a lot of, black ops, but secret discoveries that are not being released to the general public. So,
this is more than possible, but the point is this. You don't need an instrument, a physical instrument, to perceive that reality if you learn to awaken your superior senses. Yeah. Now, this is something very important that we mentioned in the lecture about karma dharma. When we die, remember, we continue alive on the other side with a molecular body and also with a mental body, which is an atomic body. We continue alive on the other side. That matter or energy is fed with the spirit. The electricity, continues giving us life on the other side. Even there is no more electricity in the physical body, the cellular body, but the molecular body that we already have and our atomic body or mind continue alive on the other side. Well, we are all going to be judged by the lords of karma or the angels of cosmic justice. They will be telling us there is a book of life for each one of us. Do you remember that you did this or that? And we will say, no, I don't remember that, Well, they will show us the memories of nature. So remember my words. If you have committed crimes that were never discovered here on earth by the law of the humans or the subhumans, and you believe that you were so intelligent because nobody discovered you, on the other side, my friend, you are already in troubles, because you are going to be judged on the other side. And every tear that you produced in the eyes of every human being on earth, you will be crying every tear that you created, and you will have to pay the same way. That will contribute to awaken your soul, your consciousness, and to annihilate your ego. The psychology, animal psychology, the psychology of me, instead of us, because we are all important. So the purpose of cosmic law is basically that, cosmic justice, divine justice. Remember, there is an equilibrium in the universe. So there is divine justice, either we like it or not.
Also, we have lectures coming up. I'm not sure what the timetable is, but Dream Yoga is one of the lectures that's taught by Samael Unver, and it will be on the list of one of our future podcasts. But we've given you a couple of symbols so far to start off the Dream Yoga process. And Dream Yoga is nothing more than paying attention to every aspect of your dream and even writing it down. And if you don't understand what something is now, well, in the future, if you keep doing this, you will slowly start to uncover the language, decipher things, and figure things out. You might see something in a dream today that you don't understand, but a year from now, 5 years from now, you might see the same thing from a slightly different point of view, and then you will be saying, oh, now I understand that. And I'd like to warn people not to go to dream interpreters because they don't know anything more than you. And each message from your monad to you is specifically designed for you, and only you can interpret that properly. It might take a little bit of time.
So basically, meditation is the key word, okay? As you said, Rick, we have to learn to practice meditation 24 hours a day if it is possible. The most important time is before we go to sleep or very early in the morning after we wake up, to establish a relationship with our real being, with our monad, with God within, with our, King of the universe or Queen of the universe also, that lives within ourselves. So Samael Aung recommends to combine prayer with meditation. Let's say I cannot meditate, okay? I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm confused, I don't know what to do with my life. Then pray. God, divine being, you who are my real being, please help me. Help me to learn to meditate. Teach me how to connect with you. And eventually it will happen. There is a moment that our real being, who's been always helping us, even if we never noticed it before, now we will establish that relationship. So those people who are skeptical, those people who are atheists, we're asking them to look for different options in their lives. Okay, they are right. You're right when you criticize fanatic religious individuals who are totally lost, and sometimes they commit crazy, acts because of their irresponsibility regarding their own religions. You're right regarding that. Maybe you walk away from religion because of that. But now, remember, there is a center point, which is we disagree with atheism because it's an incomplete perception of reality, and we also disagree with fanatic religious individuals. Both are wrong. Both are incomplete. So we have to go into the center to understand, creation and evolution, both are part of reality. Those people who consider themselves spiritual or others who consider themselves materialistic, both are wrong. Both are incomplete. Because life is spirit and matter, both. So Gnostic anthropology teaches how to be real, how to be realistic. Learning to meditate means learning to explore ourselves, learning to know who we are. We are spirit and matter, we are both. So we are spiritual beings, we have a body, we have a mind, but within matter is the feminine aspect of the divinity, helping us to organize our lives, helping us to live, because life is also a school of learning. Remember that. We are here to learn. We are here to ascend into higher levels of consciousness. The problem is, through evolution, we will never get there. It has to be a tremendous re-evolution, because evolution is a mechanical law.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. My name's Richard Rucroft. My co-host is E. Jim G. Ross. The website is rickyradio.com. We invite your comments and emails. The email address is gnosticradio@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Rick, for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to be here tonight or today. And thank you for our listeners for being with us. We appreciate, your participation. And we would love to get your opinion. It's very, very important to us. In the future, we will establish a dialogue, a more direct dialogue with all of you. Thank you again.
In the future, we'll probably end up doing a mailing list of some kind. So anybody would like to contribute to sending us messages, if you'd like to be on the mailing list, gnosticradio@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you.